There's still a few folks trickling in, so let me get things started. My name is Jack McDougall, and I am the President and CEO of the Greater Washington Board of Trade. Thank you for joining today's Regional Policy Leadership Series. Today's sponsored by MGM National Harbor. Melonie, thank you for that. And also co-hosted with the Maryland Chamber of Commerce. So I want to thank Mary Kane and her team, represented by Grayson Wiggins, who's here with us today. So today we're going to look at public safety and economic growth, justice reform and workforce development, and community collaboration for crime reduction. Public safety has been a topic of interest for the business community always, but in particular over the past couple of years. And while we're continuing to make progress, we certainly want to keep an eye on things and keep figuring out ways that we can continue to improve the situation. So we have a really great panel with us today, and I'm so happy to introduce them. We have Senator William Smith, who's chair of the Judicial Proceedings Committee and representative from Montgomery County in Maryland. We have Chair Jolene Ivey, who's chair of the Prince George's County Council. We also have with us Chief Aziz, who's chief of police for Prince George's County, and really happy to have Melonie Johnson, president and COO of MGM National Harbor, here to moderate our discussion. Towards the end, we have some time. We'll open up for questions from the audience. You just put them in the chat or use the question feature, and we'll get to those. And so with that, Melonie, I'm going to turn it over to you to get us started. So thanks again, everyone.
Thank you, Jack. Just a little general introduction from me. Today's webinar is designed to bring together government, law enforcement, and business leaders to explore best practices and areas of improvement for building a safe and thriving region. Partnerships can elevate both public safety and regional success. Safety is crucial in the city because it directly impacts the quality of life for residents, allowing them to freely access public spaces, fostering a sense of well-being, attracting businesses and investments, and ultimately contributing to a thriving community by reducing crime, anxiety, and social isolation. A safe city is more likely to be seen as a desirable place to live, work, and visit. Today's topics that we will address will include public safety and economic growth, justice reform and workforce development, community collaboration, supporting small businesses through community policing, and youth intervention programs. I'd like to thank our three panelists that Jack introduced earlier: Senator Smith, Chair Jolene Ivey, and Chief Malik Aziz. So without further ado, we'll begin our conversation. Local leaders, including law enforcement, local government, and business community, can significantly enhance public safety and promote economic growth by collaborating on strategies that address crime and foster secure, business-friendly environments, as evidenced by success stories from our region, where the revitalization of commercial districts through increased police presence and business engagement has improved safety, boosted consumer confidence, and attracted investments, ultimately creating a vibrant community atmosphere. As we consider the future of public safety and specific actions local leaders can take to further enhance collaboration amongst law enforcement, government, and the business community in driving public safety initiatives forward, I would like each of you to take a minute to describe to us what public safety means to you and how we can lean on these collaborative efforts to help improve the public safety environment. Chief Aziz, we'll start with you. Chief, I think you're on mute.
Indeed, I am. Thank you so much, Ms. Johnson, and say hello, good day to my fellow panelists and to all of those who have joined this webinar. I'll start out by saying what these things mean to me, and I'll use the term that we are all in this in a co-production of public safety. And what that means is it forms a true partnership between residential communities, business communities, and law enforcement that enable us to create a space that creates a better and safer Prince George's County, a better and safer region, by having a collaborative partnership that enables us to have where we live, to have better schools and businesses, to have that way of life. It's where we go to work, for where our children are playing and where we're being entertained. And in order to have such a vibrant atmosphere, a vibrant space, then we must create a space that is safe, but not just safe in the statistical realities of things, but safe in the perceived thing, the perceived state, because that's two differences. And so our measurement in this co-production of public safety and how we enable our businesses, our residents to feel safe in their space, it means forming a real baseline over not just year to year crime against last year, but in 3 years, in 5 years, and having a strategic vision of how we work with each other and how we enable each other in this co-production for public safety for a better county. That also means that we engage our youth, that we're engaging emerging adults, that we're engaging the workforce, and we're engaging our seniors, because it's not one solution that will enable us to be better, but it is a multitude of solutions that enable us to go forward. That's just, in a brief, that's what it means to me.
Thank you, Chief. Chair Ivey.
Thank you, and thank you for hosting this. It's such an important discussion. And some of the things that Chief Aziz mentioned are going to be something you're going to hear over and over again, which is it's not just about real safety. Are you safe? But do you feel safe? And if you feel safe, if the community feels comfortable and relaxed, then businesses will also be more comfortable and more willing to expand in whatever area that they're in. So we think it's important, not just from a statistical viewpoint, and of course, by a real viewpoint, you do want your statistics to look good, because statistics are a reflection of reality. They show you exactly where crimes are occurring and what kind of crimes, and we don't want them. We want there to be no crimes occurring anywhere. So we need to do all we can to work together to make sure our communities are safe and feel safe. And I think that that's a collaborative effort. It will take for us to all get there, and we're going to get better every day.
So in other words, it takes a village.
It really takes all of our villages.
Thank you so much. Senator Smith.
Hey, well, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I want to say thanks to the board and to our council president, Jolene. Good to see you. Chief Aziz, always a pleasure to serve with you, be with you on this panel. And Melonie, thank you for the introduction. Look, public safety to me means, and I'll steal this from the governor, is being safe in your communities, in your own skin, but also being safe in your community. And Chief Aziz and the council president touched on this. As a policymaker, it's important to keep your eyes on the headlines, yes, but also the trend lines. If you're making long-term strategic decisions, you have to understand what the trend lines are telling you. And yes, nationally and in Prince George's County and in Montgomery County, regionally, violent crime is trending down. There are significant spikes in certain types of crimes, as the chief will tell you, and as the chief knows. But it's important to understand the difference between the headlines and the trend lines, and to pay attention to both, because there is a perception problem. And when people do not perceive things to be safe, they will not invest in our communities. They won't come down and shop. They won't invest with their feet or their money. Businesses won't come down to our city centers and invest their time and capital building enterprise here. So public safety is the touchstone of everything that we do. As you mentioned, I'm chair of the Judicial Proceedings Committee in the Maryland State Senate. And although I represent Montgomery County, the policies that we enact affect everybody. And so it's a critical conversation. I'm really glad to be here with you all, and look forward to the discussion ahead.
Thank you, Senator. Next, in an effort to support formerly incarcerated individuals, Maryland has created several programs to spur entrepreneurship development. This includes the Maryland New Start Act of 2022, established a grant program and micro loan fund administered by the Maryland Department of Labor and Department of Commerce to create or support existing entrepreneurship development programs by providing loans directly to formerly incarcerated individuals, and the federal bonding program, which provides fidelity bonds to employers who hire individuals with criminal records and other high-risk applicants. Can each of you take a minute to describe how these programs help business incentives while simultaneously improving communities and lives of residents, and what more can be done so that we can ensure ongoing funding, facilitate access to resources, and foster partnerships between government agencies, community organizations, and the private sector to ensure that we continue to have a supportive ecosystem that empowers returning citizens and positively impacts their communities. Senator Smith, we'll start with you.
Excellent. Well, thank you for the question. Obviously, if you have a job and you have a stable house life, you have access to housing and access to capital, your prospects of recidivism are drop dramatically. The program that we passed in 2022, it caps a grant of up to $60,000 for participating businesses and individuals. It's been remarkably effective. I think when you couple that with things like the Work Opportunity Tax Credit, which is a federal pass-through program that allows for that first $6,000 of income to be 40% of that to be given as a tax credit to that participating business. All of these things help leverage opportunity to keep people out of the lifestyle that landed them in the criminal justice system in the first place. When you think about it, in Maryland, we fluctuate between about 16,000 and 18,000 incarcerated individuals every year in our prison system, not our jails, but our prisons. Each one of those individuals costs our state roughly $60,000 a year. Now, if that person were not to be incarcerated, but were rather earning income, paying that 2.5% to 5% to 6% income tax, that money goes back into our economy and is a net positive for all of us. So for the social aspects, for the businesses that can get this access to the grants and also the tax credits, for the individual participating, it's a win for all of us. It's a smart way of doing business. So at the state level, we'll look for new and innovative ways to continue these programs, but also to continue to invest in folks that are returning and coming back home.
Thank you. Chair Ivey?
Yes, we have a program that the county started as well that does something similar and piggybacks on the state program. And we encourage private employers to hire people coming out of the prison system. And there's a grant program that goes with that. So that encourages that, because as he was just saying, if people have a job, they're less likely to go back to jail. They're less likely to steal your car or hurt someone, all the things that have an impact on our whole community. And we want them to be good taxpayers. I do know that some years ago, I was trying to help a young man who had a record and was having a very difficult time getting hired. I hired him myself in Annapolis for the period of time that I could, but that's just during the legislative session. And when the session ended, so did his job. And it didn't take long after that before this young man was back in prison. And it was so frustrating to me personally because I could see it up close and directly what was happening to him, because I had been trying to help him get a job. But so many companies had such high levels of scrutiny on him, even to do something simple like cleaning the building. I mean, I don't know why it was so difficult for him to get a job. It really didn't make sense. So we need to continue to make it easier for people to get employed and to do things like we do have here in Prince George's County, so that returning citizens won't be asked about or no one will be asked about their criminal background at the time they're applying for a job. I think that helps. Eventually, depending on what the job is, they are able to have access to those records. And there are jobs that someone should not be allowed to have again, depending on what their infraction had been. But overall, most jobs should be available to people to try to keep them out of jail. I think it's also important that we do things like help entrepreneurship among that population, meaning if you can't get someone to hire you, then hire yourself. And I think that that can be really powerful. There are programs that do it, and I'd love to bring them here to Prince George's County.
Thank you. Chief Aziz, I'd like to hear your perspective on this subject matter because you have a high profile, high pressure, and high scrutiny job maintaining this in the county. So I'd like to understand your perspective.
Well, thank you so much. Let me kind of, bring it in with a more broad scope from policing, because most people will have a belief that police are only involved in this to the enforcement side, that's what the police do. We only care about the enforcement. So I'll start out by saying, in my very own family, with some older brothers and sisters who were returning citizens, coming back, home. And their biggest issue that they were facing was that they were ostracized and they could not get reasonable employment because they had a record, the high misdemeanor or felony. And so they said, what are we to do? What are we to do after we say we paid our debt to society? Then what will happen with us now? So that has formed my perspective in policing for 35 years, because I had people in my very own family who were not on this side of the law for a greater part of their lives, starting at a very young age. So what can we do when we are in a vicious cycle in neighborhoods that are poverty stricken, feeding into schools that become low performing, and only being able to get the backbreaking jobs as my, that will pay, but are painful in heavy lifting and heavy operating equipment, or putting, your life in peril in some of these jobs. And then that cycle continues where you get in and out of the system. So I saw this up close. And so our job in the police department is not just an enforcement operation. It is first and foremost a prevention operation, first and foremost. And then it is an investigative and enforcement organization that only comes to a means to an end only when the investigation meets that out and we pass the baton for reasonable justice to take place. So from a chief's perspective, then we have to remove the obstacles, because every human being has a chance, has a right to be redempted, for the road to redemption, that we throw away behaviors, we don't throw away people. So now what do we do about it? We form partnerships with returning citizen organizations. We're involved. Our chair, Ivey, she mentioned part of it was formed with the county. We're with the county executive. We're with the state's attorney's office. There's multiple organizations that are meeting these needs. And in every last one of them, we have a police representative. Why is that important? Because I went to graduations with the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council that was overseen by our administrative judges. And I've shaken the hands of people who were just like some of my older brothers and sisters, who said they never thought that they would shake the hand of a police chief at a graduation and some milestones in their life. That is important for us from the spot that I sit, where I stand, to reach my hand across and say, you paid your debt. Welcome back to society. I'm going to do everything to make sure in that prevention form that we don't have a vicious cycle, that it can be interrupted. And we are partnering with you in making our neighborhoods right. So we form partnerships with the returning citizens. I hear their perspective. It means a lot to me. And we facilitated the first violence interrupters in a partnership from the county with the Office of Community Relations that was started right here in the police department with the pastors. With those pastors, we engage, and those same violence interrupters who have more credibility than any police chief can have in the streets, they are out there and they have our support for preventing crime in our neighborhoods. And so we just want to give a person a new and better, exciting chance to come back to society and give them meaningful employment while we try to prevent things. The last thing I'll say is that we went to Cheltenham. I was the first police chief to go to Cheltenham and speak to the young people. We spoke to 15, 16 young people who had dreams and aspirations about being something in life. They had dreams and aspirations about being something in life. They did not believe I was the police chief. So why is that important? It's important because in full uniform with these stars on my collar, with this badge and presenting myself before them, they said, why would a police chief come down to talk to us? They're going to get out. They're going back to society at some point. It was important for me to stand and say, I believe in you and I want you to be productive. I could talk all day about it, but I think from my perspective, that's what we're doing. We're engaging, and we're not just saying we're the enforcement arm of the law. We are here for a partnership, and we want you to be better.
Thank you, Chief. That was very powerful. And it shows that you care and that you're approachable and you're meeting people where they are. Thank you so much. So we'll move on to community collaboration. Community collaboration involving legislators, public safety officials, nonprofits, advocacy organizations, and local businesses is vital for addressing public safety in a comprehensive manner, as these partnerships enable a multifaceted approach that combines resources and expertise from diverse sectors, fostering a more holistic understanding of the issues at hand. Senator Smith and Chair Ivey, as we explore innovative approaches for improving public safety, how have coordinated efforts contributed to the reduction in crime within your districts? So Senator Smith, we'll start with you first. You're on mute, Senator.
Hey, thank you for the question. One interesting thing about serving at the state Senate is that you have an opportunity to visit all 24 jurisdictions in Maryland, and you kind of understand that there are a lot of great things happening in every corner of our state, but that too often things are happening in silos. So everyone has their own kind of center of excellence that's siloed. And one thing you learn very quickly is that nothing happens in a vacuum with respect to crime and economic movement. And so for, one of the things we've done at the state level is this is a couple of years ago, we passed a piece of legislation that created a council to get state police to work with the local jurisdictions to do intelligence sharing, resource sharing, and the like with the governor's office of crime prevention, and also with the governor and members of the legislature at the helm. Now, between Prince George's County and Montgomery County, you've got the two largest jurisdictions that abut each other in the state of Maryland. We are also right next to Washington, D.C. And so you've got a lot of activity going on. And one of the things that I've seen to be really effective are some of the task forces. And Chief, you can speak more eloquently to this, but the task forces that we have for carjacking or for gun crime that are cross-jurisdictional, mutual aid agreements are tremendously effective. I'll give you a little vignette from our state's attorney's office where you had someone steal a car. Chief, you lent your chopper to follow them from Prince George's County to Montgomery County, and ultimately an arrest was made in Washington, D.C., which shows you the level of collaboration and communication between the three jurisdictions. That has a tremendous impact on the ability to solve crime and to prevent crime. And so I think the intelligence sharing and the good relationships between our two jurisdictions is paramount because, as I said at the top, nothing happens in a vacuum, but too often across the state, you see these kind of siloed centers of excellence. So the ability for lawmakers and for law enforcement officers and community activists and community leaders to communicate cross-jurisdictionally is tremendously important, has been tremendously effective in crime prevention and also solving violent crime. So it's paramount.
Chair Ivey.
One thing that I'm really pleased with in our county is the Prince George's County Crime Solvers, which is actually not a county group, but we support it. And they do a great job of providing incentives for people to report crime information that they have if they know who may have committed a crime. And they also have a mobile app that you can use to report. They have a phone number. And so I think that that is really helpful to work with the police to help solve crimes. The more crimes we can solve, the more of a deterrent it is, because people will start to feel like they don't want to commit the crime because they're probably going to get caught. We also have something else that I'm sure the police chief will want to mention, so I won't talk about it a lot, but the Community Oriented Policing Services, a COPS program, where we have police officers that are kind of integrated into community groups. They come to meetings, they're very accessible, and it makes you feel like you know who to call if there's something that you need as a community member. So everything's not a 911 call. Some things are just something you can reach out to your community COPS officer. And I think that that really helps with the relationships that we have with the police force. I think that overall, people in Prince George's County are very happy with our police force. There's always going to be somebody who's not doing a great job. That's true, whether you're a police officer, a politician, or you work at Target. I mean, there's always someone who's not doing a great job, but generally speaking, I think most people are hardworking and have the community's interests at heart. So I think that these kind of relationships are the thing that really is at the heart of making our community safer, and they are relationships that we really need to foster.
Thank you both. And Chief Aziz, how can these efforts be improved to ensure that we continue to operate in a manner that fosters an environment focused on community collaboration as to the deterrence of crime?
Well, let me say, well, thank you. I heard the other panelists, and you said some things that I should expound on. And thanks to Senator Smith for bringing up our relationship with Montgomery County. Our aviation unit is considered one of the best along the entire eastern seaboard, and we facilitate the partnerships with the chiefs, the past chief and the current chief, to make sure that we are responsive and addressing crime issues in a way that makes the region safe, not just Prince George's County. So we've been happy to foster that relationship for a very long time now as one of the leaders in aviation across the region and the eastern seaboard. It's just that good. We have many more collaborative partnerships, and that is we have every other month we meet with our federal partners, the U.S. Attorney, from the FBI to the DEA to HSI to almost every federal agency is in the room, along with representatives from the district, and we're talking about collaboration and crime issues and cross-border issues and things that affect what's happening in DC, in Montgomery County, Prince George's County, Fairfax, and we formed a regional approach to making sure that what we're talking about on one side of the line, that they're talking about on the other side of the line. But let me say something here about how do we strengthen these collaborations to make sure that we don't regress. And these are things that don't look like crime fighting. They don't look like the efforts that people think deter crime, but they deter crime. So let me just say a few of them. In a couple of months, we'll be doing Toys for Tots, which is the largest Toys for Tots along this eastern seaboard. We'll give out 100,000 toys to 7,000 plus families, and it'll be police-led and police-driven with our military, with the Marines, and many people will volunteer from places like we have our Chiefs Advisory Committee, members who meet with me once a month to talk about policy and crime and things that affect the neighborhoods. We'll have the Citizens Police Academy, which we're heading up into the 50 class right now that's going on in our beautiful National Harbor. And they'll be down there volunteering with the Citizens Police Academy Alumni Association. So many volunteers will reach thousands of people in a positive way that police are standing and doing something in the community. Our Cora Rice Christmas party is coming up. It's been going on for decades, but we'll have 400 to 500 kids inside that room where we'll be feeding them and giving them toys in a festive, positive, fostering relationship style. And along those lines, with our beautiful Police Athletic Activities League, we have the Badges for Baseball, formed by the Iron Man, Cal Ripken himself, and his family foundation that enabled us to build a baseball field to bring children out of the communities who are having a circumstance that we can show them a better way with a baseball and a bat and use it in a positive way. Or our boxing program that has yielded some champions from this region. This is the home of Sugar Ray Leonard on this side. We've built out those kids out there for martial arts, for boxing, for going down in our young entrepreneurs program. We were talking about businesses. We invite our local business leaders, our small business leaders to come out and judge people on a modern day young teenage Shark Tank where they have dreamed up these ideas and been very supportive of our young people to mentor them and lead them away from some things that may have been negative. And so all of these things are being done, from leadership clubs to forming our summer camps. We're taking kids to see the Wiz, or taking them to off-Broadway, plays that are traveling around. We've taken them to summer camps. We're showing them a better way. Positive.
Chief, okay, there we go.
So I had to say that. I can talk all day about it, but that's just a few things for us to shore up our relationships.
Thank you, Chief. You pretty much covered the second topic extremely well. So I'm going to defer to Chair Ivey. And how can partnerships, what additional innovative approaches can elected officials such as yourselves adopt to sustain long-term community collaboration and involvement with the business community, particularly in addressing evolving public safety challenges and building resilience within neighborhoods?
Well, that was a big question. And I will say that we worked very closely with Chief Aziz over the summer, early in the summer, when we were having problems at National Harbor with a lot of young people, like hundreds, showing up, and not hundreds were misbehaving, but enough were misbehaving, running through stores and tearing things apart and fighting, that we had to institute a youth curfew. So we did it as an emergency measure at first, just for National Harbor, and then expanded it to the whole county as needed. And I'm not even sure we've had to need it again anywhere else in the county, but it's there should we need it. And I found it to be really, really useful. There's signage up that lets you know when the youth curfew is in effect at National Harbor. And there are people there to help enforce it that aren't just police officers. So if there's a problem, you'll have someone from social services, for example, approach to begin the conversation so that it's not viewed as an arresting situation at all. But then the police are able to hold that person until their parents can come pick them up. And as long as their parent picks them up in a reasonable amount of time, that's kind of the end of it. And if the parent won't pick them up in a reasonable amount of time, they basically get charged for a babysitting service, because it is not our job to babysit your child who should not be here right now. And I think it's been really useful. I think that by getting the word out that this was the policy, we haven't had problems at National Harbor anymore. And we wanted to make sure that that was a place that felt safe to the community, that felt safe for our visitors, and that the businesses knew that they could continue to thrive. It's a wonderful place, but if you go and you feel like you might run into hundreds of young people showing off and showing out, you probably would decide to take your business and your money somewhere else. And we don't want that to happen. And it's been really useful, really effective. And as far as I know, no other business area in the county has had to take advantage of it yet, and hopefully won't.
Thank you so much. Senator?
Hey, Malik, okay, I'll be quick. Look, when I first ran for office, a friend of mine said, look, if you're lucky enough to get elected, the greatest tool you'll have is the tool of convening. You have the power to convene people from across the country, from across the state, from across the region, your county, your district. You bring them to a table and they'll help you address and solve problems. I would add to that you need to be radically inclusive in your convening. That means you look to your left, you look to your right, and you're sitting around that proverbial policymaking or decision-making table, and you ask yourself who has been excluded, who has not been included, who is not here that should be here. And your job as a leader is to go out and you get them and bring them to the table to help you solve complex problems. So doing things like this, I make it a point to go out and to walk through my district, talk to small businesses. I make it a point to engage my chambers of commerce, ask them what's happening, what's on their mind, what policy changes can we make. In Annapolis, we only go, and Jolene, you know this, we're only in session for 90 days, and it's a frenetic 90 days. And so you have to be very intentional in planning what you want to do and strategic in what you want to do if you want to maximize the time that you have. And 4 years goes by very quickly. So our ability to communicate and to establish those relationships with businesses large and small and understand what's affecting them so that we can make the proper policy adjustments to unleash opportunity and to keep our communities safe is critically important. One last thing is that these relationships are perishable. So you've got to continue to do this. It requires constant maintenance and engagement. And so I think the innovative thing is going out, talking to folks and just keeping it going. And creating spaces where people can come together and share those ideas before we go into that legislative session.
Thank you, Senator. Now we'll move to supporting small businesses through community policing. Utilizing public-private partnerships is essential for sustaining a collaborative approach in community policing, as pooling resources and expertise enables law enforcement and business owners to develop targeted initiatives such as safety programs, neighborhood watch groups, and community events that promote both safety and economic vitality, thereby enhancing relationship among stakeholders and fostering a shared responsibility for community safety, ultimately benefiting the community through thriving businesses, more secure commercial areas, increased foot traffic, investment, and an overall improvement in the quality of life. As leaders in public safety, what strategies, best practices, and success stories can you share with us that can be implemented or expanded upon to ensure continued engagement between law enforcement, elected officials, business owners, and members of the community to ensure that community policing efforts effectively address and are responsive to the changing dynamics of the areas that they serve? Chair Ivey, we'll start with you.
There's so many different things happening. One thing that we have is business improvement districts, which make it possible for businesses to kind of work together to come up with a plan of what they need in their area to be successful. And that can include public safety initiatives. So they're able to pay into a fund that they control and they decide how it's spent, and they can come up with some really innovative ways to keep their areas safe. We also have focused a lot on security cameras in Prince George's County, whether that's funding certain areas that have higher crime to help pay for security cameras for the residents, because if there's a crime and you have a tape of it, it definitely helps solve the crime and therefore deters crime. And we also have legislation that requires security cameras at apartment complexes so that when someone is in a parking lot or entering or exiting the apartment building, we have that on tape too. And that is another thing that helps keep people safe. So the more things that we can do, and as Senator Smith was saying, the collaboration with all the different groups, we had such meetings last year when we were having more problems with retail theft. And so bring together the store owners and the police and other community members to talk about what's going on and how can we deter this kind of behavior. A lot of things we saw more in DC where someone would come in and take all the laundry detergent or, whatever. You have stores that have therefore closed because they don't want to continue operating someplace where they're not getting paid for the things that they are providing for sale. So those are the kind of community collaboration meetings that really do help to deter crime. And I do believe that it has made a difference in Prince George's County.
Thank you, Chair Ivey. Senator Smith?
So I think community policing is tremendously effective. And I think nationwide, you look at places like Camden New Jersey, who started really doing this model in the early 2000s, and within just a 10-year period of time, a decade period of time, you saw almost a 53% drop in violent crime. So that's the most stark example of how effective it can be. But ensuring that, when you do community policing, it requires also, and a lot of the municipalities have done this, and I think it's been instructive for us at the state level. But when you have the ability not only to hire locally folks that are a part of the community and part of the fabric of the community, that you encourage folks that can afford to live where they work, then they're invested in the community. When community members know members of law enforcement and of government by their name, they're more able to share knowledge, intelligence, but also stories. And you marry that with some statistical, we talked about a lot of the kind of like the statistics and the intelligence sharing. If you marry that with the ability to understand that on this block, so-and-so family is receiving this benefit and receiving that benefit, or it needs this benefit, and as a farms kid, and you have several violent, you marry all that intelligence together, you're able to have and furnish a community response where it's not only a law enforcement response, but it's a resource-driven response. And that's where community policing, I think, and community involvement really comes together nicely within making sure that it's not just a law enforcement response to a problem, but it's a community investment of resources and time and love and care into a community that ultimately prevents crime and unlocks opportunity for people educationally and economically. A lot of the municipalities around our state are doing innovative things like that and responding in that fashion when they understand what's happening on a block or in a neighborhood that's not just about crime, but what else is happening, what other resources could be infused into a neighborhood to ensure that not only crime goes down, but that people have economic prosperity and educational opportunities as well.
Thank you very much, Senator Smith. Chief Aziz, in light of evolving crime trends, how can public safety officials adapt the community policing practices to address emerging challenges while maintaining strong relationships with local businesses?
Well, thank you so much. Let me expound. I appreciate the senator talking about, some of those programs and how community policing is at the forefront of this very issue and how we engage and how it makes a better and safer community no matter where you are. And those things, they are not optional. They are mandatory. This is the way policing is. The foundation from Robert Peel was to have the community. He said the community are the police and the police are the community. There isn't anything that we do in a police department, in a strong, positive police department, that is done in a vacuum. It is all done with the support and with the encouragement and with the foundational atmosphere, vibrancy of the very community in which it serves. Nothing happens without the community. It's a 50-50 partnership. Going forward, policing was built for that way when we started in the modern era of community policing and engagement, and it should remain. I would say in order to strengthen those things, because it would be important for me to say now in Prince George's County, and from my perspective now, and the stats would back up what is perceived, that homicides are down, carjackings are down, non-fatal shootings are down, stolen vehicles are down, and the crimes that are up are people not being able to have conflict resolution, and that is fights. So domestic violence fights, we're pushing and shoving and spitting and things like that. Those are the crimes that are up now, and we should feel very supportive about that. I would tell people to get involved. Get involved with your Citizens Police Academy. Get involved with your civic associations and your HOAs. Attend the council meeting. Get involved in some bill you feel strongly about. Ask Chair Ivey or Senator Smith, what is it that they can help them with, and not just help them with it through just the email or a phone call. Show up in Annapolis, show up down over at the WKC and speak about it. The businesses, you spoke about this, get cameras that work, get cameras that store it in the cloud, and care about your constituency, care about the clients, care about the customers that are coming. And I would also say, when we talk about successes, I won't go back on what Chair Ivey talked about with National Harbor, but it was a success. And thanks to the county council for having the fortitude to put that in place so that we could make everyone safe. And that was a very difficult and hard decision to do. but it was safety. And I just heard from National Harbor last week, and they were very supportive and appreciative of what all you guys had done. I'll say we had a community, I won't say the name, they had some serious crime issues going on, violent crime I'm talking about. So we got the pastors together, we got the community leaders together, the civic associations, the coffee clubs, the police, and we had 100, 150, 200 people talk about these issues. They gave us the problems. We addressed those problems. We went to the communities. We picked up trash. We put lights out. I don't work for those electric companies, but we facilitated that. And they said crime went down. Crime went down in that area for the first time in a long time because we were paying attention to what they were saying, and we took the issues that they said as our job, not just everybody else's job. That's a success story. And those things are being replicated all over the county and all over this region because we have chiefs and public officials who are here, who care about the people who live here. And all we need is just a little engagement from them.
Great story, Chief. Now we'll segue into youth intervention programs. Youth intervention programs are essential for supporting at-risk youth by offering resources like mentorship, education, and job training, while recent juvenile justice reforms by the Maryland General Assembly, youth curfew laws in Prince George's County, and law enforcement initiatives such as athletic programs and the Police Explorers program enhance these efforts by fostering structured environments that promote community responsibility among young people. Senator Smith and Chair Ivey, how can community stakeholders, including schools, law enforcement, elected officials, local businesses, continue to collaborate and enhance the effectiveness of these initiatives? Senator Smith, we'll start with you.
Excellent. Thanks for the question. So, in response to community feedback, this last session, we made some changes to our juvenile justice laws to better effectuate our intentions from prior sessions. That included $111 million of money that went back to the counties for mental health and substance abuse treatment, $24 million for the Department of Juvenile Services for treatment and for programming, and then $42 million for the creation of the Governor's Office of Children. All that is to say, from the legislative perspective, is that I would encourage folks to come to Annapolis if they can. I know it's hard to take off of work, hard to get away from the family, but if you can come and advocate, that's the best way to do it. You can do it online. We have online options. People can come and testify via Zoom, but also Annapolis can come to you. We can come to the communities and host those community meetings and engage directly with you to understand exactly the type of changes that you all need and desire and what you're seeing in your everyday life. So I would, my I guess advice would be to engage in the legislative process from my perspective. Show up online, in person, or we will come to you to effectuate that change. One thing is, I always make this joke, but most folks couldn't tell their state delegate or their state senator, couldn't pick them out of a lineup. And I think you gotta engage, because these folks have a lot of control over your day to day, and just like your council members, these folks have a lot of influence on how you move about the world. And so get to know those legislators, and guess what? We work for you. So reach out and engage and put us to work.
Thank you. Chair Ivey?
In Prince George's County, one thing that we have done is pass legislation that requires at least half of the jobs that we have in our summer youth employment program go to young people who are in families who are at 30% of the average median income. And that's really for, very struggling families have greater access to these jobs. And that's the kind of program that does help people get out of poverty. It gives them access to experience and contacts. We've had some of these interns in my office, and it's been a wonderful, wonderful relationship that you build with them. So that's something that I'm proud of and happy about. But beyond that, to me, the most important thing we can do is support struggling families from the beginning, because if we can help parents be better parents, then their children are going to be better behaved, ready for school, and contributing members of our society over the long term. I think that's the most important thing we can do. And we have a program in Prince George's County through the Prince George's Child Resource Center, which has been renamed Child Care Connect. But they have a program where we start with any family who has a baby in the county, any family. It is not means tested. So if you have a baby, then you have the opportunity to have at least 2 visits from a registered nurse to your home, to whether it's just to talk about things that you're going through as a new parent, or perhaps that nurse realizes that you need a job, or there's drug abuse in the home, or there's, domestic violence, whatever they might be having, then that nurse is able to connect that family with services. It's been a really effective program, and I would love to expand it to even more visits. My daughter-in-law had a baby July 4th. We're very excited. And she got signed up for the program, and she's had visits, and she absolutely loved it. And they're certainly not low-income people, but they are just new parents who, like any new parent, you don't know what you're doing. So I wish this program had existed when I was a new mom, and I'm really glad that it is here in Prince George's County.
Thank you, Chair Ivey. And in closing, the last question, Chief Aziz, this is yours. In light of these collaborations and programs, how can government officials, law enforcement, the Greater Washington Board of Trade, and members of the business community continue to work together to explore best practices and identify areas for improvement in building a safer, more thriving region in Maryland that continues to provide more opportunities and benefits to its younger residents?
Thank you so much for giving me the last question here. Let me say, I really want to have a lead in to, because nothing can happen if we don't engage. If we want to have those things done with what you just said, then we're going to have to engage the youth. We're going to have to, Frederick Douglass said, and it's important a long time ago, that it is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. And what we have to do is engage our young people, and we have to make sure that those programs that I mentioned a lot of programs in which what we do, they don't look like crime prevention, but they are. And for our youth, the vast majority of our youth in whatever jurisdiction you find are doing really well. They're doing just being young people living out their lives. And then we have a small group that are not doing so well and not doing the things that we need them to do to lend a hand to a very productive and vibrant county or place where we live. So I think we as public officials and law enforcement, working with elected officials, we should identify the best and promising practices, but there's always one element that is missing. And that one element is missing is for something to become a best and promising practice, somebody has to do it. And then other people can emulate it. I think that we have the best and brightest minds, that there's no one solution to these problems. There's a multitude of solutions, but there's nothing wrong with putting a foot forward and trying some new things, because that is how the best promising practices are developed. And I think here, from my perspective, the police, our engagement with the community, we talk about the money, but sometimes it's more than the money. It is about how much strength you have to volunteer. What do you have to give? Can you verbally give something? Can you physically give something? Do you have time? Do you have money? What do you have? And every little small thing counts. And I think that is the most important thing I could leave you with, is get involved and do something with these programs, whether it's with the police department, it's with the county officials, it's with the state officials, or it's with one of our many great NGOs that we have served in this region.
Thank you, Chief. Senator Smith, Chair Ivey, Chief Aziz, thank you so much for sharing your insights here with us today. I will now turn it over to Jack McDougall with the Greater Washington Board of Trade to close us out. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. This was great.
Great, thanks, Melanie, and thanks everyone for sharing your insights with us today. Senator Smith, Chair Ivey, Chief Aziz, and Melanie, thank you for facilitating that really important conversation. Yeah, it's everybody's job. I think we kind of started at the outset that we all need to work together to continue to address these issues. And it's not, Chief Aziz, as you said too, it's not just on the enforcement side. There's a lot of different elements to this that we have to work on together. So I really do appreciate that. I appreciate everybody taking time today to join us. We will continue to look at and support efforts to address public safety because it is critical for all of our communities and businesses. And so I just want to thank everyone again for joining us. Next up for the Board of Trade, if you're interested, the Capital Region Transportation Forum is on November 13th at the MLK Library in DC. If anyone's interested in joining us for that, please check it out. And with that, we'll end this. And thanks again. Have a great day.
Hey, thanks a lot for having us.
Thank
All right,
you.
take care. Bye-bye.